In 2025, we sit upon a veritable horde of electronic music genres, each with their own set of subcultures and attitudes. But one prevailing thought has plagued the electronic music industry from the start. For as long as it's been around, many critics have dismissed electronic music as robotic, emotionally detached, and even anti-music. This video is about how that's wrong, and how electronic music can be some of the most emotional, personal, and human that it's possible for music to be. Electronic music isn't a genre, it's a medium, a way of making sound using technology. An electronically inclined musician might look to synthesizers, samplers, drum machines, or DAWs as their chosen way to express themselves. From the beginning though, people have been suspicious of electronic music. In the early 1900s, when the Telharmonium debuted in New York, a 200-ton electronic organ, street musicians complained that its electric music drowned out their live performances. Famous composer and US Navy band leader Phillip Sousa wrote an entire essay condemning electronic or mechanical musical instruments. In it, he said that the Nightingale's song is delightful because the nightingale herself gives it forth, basically meaning that real beauty in music comes from a living being, not an imitation, that real expression can't be faked or replicated electronically. Even after the electric guitar came out in 1931 and became a staple of emotional expression in popular music, the stigma around electronic instruments never really went away. By the 1960s and 70s, synthesizers had started to worm their way into popular music, but by the time the 80s rolled around and artists began building entire tracks using only electronic instruments, that old discomfort started to creep back in. The same fears people had when the Telharmonium was introduced suddenly felt relevant again. There was a growing anxiety that the more we relied on electronic tools, the more disconnected we'd become from our own humanity and emotions. Is that really true? Why should the use of an electronic instrument, as opposed to an acoustic one, create an emotional barrier between the artist and the audience? Emotion in music isn't about whether the sound comes from a violin or a synthesizer. It's about what's being communicated through melody, rhythm, tone, texture, and even the space in between sounds. Any tool can carry emotion if the artist puts it there. And one artist who proves this more than most is Burial. Probably the most typical example of a shy, mostly anonymous bedroom producer, Burial, real name William Bevan, is a South London-based electronic musician whose mysterious persona and emotionally potent style have made him a cult figure in modern music. His second album, Untrue, is widely regarded as a masterpiece and has made Burial a staple in most electronic musicians' list of influences. His music somehow makes you feel completely heartbroken on every listen. His melancholic way of turning otherwise happy 90s R&B samples into dissonant otherworldly spectres encapsulates what it feels like to be an outsider, experiencing happiness as a mere observer rather than a participant. Burial has a distinct ability to hear meaning in lyrics and sounds that the rest of us simply can't. In his track Shell of Light, he pairs ghostly synth pads with ambient noise and fragmented speech, creating the feeling of someone trying to speak through grief or memory. These are not traditionally emotional sounds on their own, but in Burial's hands, these elements combine into some of the most organic feeling electronic music imaginable. You can almost imagine him tapping away and disappearing into his screen, becoming one with what he's creating. Burial shows us how emotion can emerge from subtlety and restraint, but emotional impact in electronic music doesn't always have to be fragile. Sometimes it bursts out in a chaotic, unfiltered form. And that's where Bogdan Raczynski comes in. A completely different sound, but driven by that same human instinct. Bogdan Raczynski is an electronic musician that places emotion and intuition over technical production prowess. He grew up as a Polish immigrant in America and later spent time living and making music in Japan, where he would experience periods of homelessness and also get discovered by Aphex Twin. This unique background seeps into his music. It's easy to hear the humanity in his work and the presence of the person through the electronic noise. The music itself is a blend of frenetic breakcore rhythms with disarmingly tender melodies. The juxtaposition leaving you at the total mercy of the music itself. Then from almost nowhere you're given crudely recorded, dreamy vocals, often waking you from the hypnotic trance the rest of the music has left you in. In his track Why, the music you're listening to right now, Bogdan strips everything back to the bare essentials. The beat is simple and uneven, almost stumbling over itself. It feels like a personal moment accidentally caught on tape. This kind of emotional honesty, delivered through such minimal tools, shows us how powerful and human electronic music can be. Despite having wildly different styles, Burial and Bogdan both treat their equipment as emotional conduits. Both artists prove that electronic music can be deeply, achingly emotional. But Burial and Bogdan are the tip of the iceberg. There are so many artists that reject the idea that emotion lives only in organic sound. These artists use technology not just to create sound, but to express feelings that might not be possible in any other medium. By the way, I'm not saying that all music created on a computer is designed to have you feeling emotional. There's absolutely music that's just designed to make you dance. And that's obviously okay. Something not having emotional depth doesn't diminish its value in any way. There's a lot of electronic music that I love, not because it makes me feel introspective, but just because it sounds sick. The idea that electronic music lacks emotion has never really been about the music. It's about perception. We're so used to associating feeling with familiar sounds, faces, and performances that when emotion shows up from an unfamiliar place, we sometimes miss it. The truth is, machines don't remove emotion. What matters is the person behind them. An electronic instrument is simply a vessel for human expression in the same way that a piano or a violin is. For me, electronic music's totally ambiguous and insanely varied nature allows for a medium that after over 15 years of listening, I haven't even slightly got bored with. It's comforted, unsettled, delighted, and challenged me in ways that I haven't been able to replicate in any other form of music. So if it hasn't connected with you yet, maybe it's not because the music is missing something. Maybe it's because it's offering something different. Something worth listening to again. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I've made a Spotify playlist of some emotional feeling, to me at least, electronic music for you to go get stuck into if you're interested. If you could write in the comments what music you connect with most, that'd be really cool. And also if you could like the video and subscribe, that'd be amazing. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.